I mean, it's interesting. We like so many of the same things. There's, I think we came up liking, you know, a subgenre of music that's not very popular. It's kind of, and maybe a style of guitar that's not as common. So there's a lot of features that we have on ours that are maybe less common on regular guitars, just by virtue of the fact that we kind of discovered the things that we like together to some degree. So we like flatter radius fretboards, for example. We like smooth necks. We like smooth frets, locking tuners.
Yep.
And a lot of these things have to do with just the live show. We tend to beat up on our guitars. We need workhorses. We put them through a lot, and we've played a lot of guitars live, and you know, unfortunately, not all of them can really handle what we throw at them. So I think we all spent quite a bit of time designing our guitars and getting them just right, and actually road testing them, because that's kind of the most important and the most difficult test.
Well, despite how different they all look aesthetically, like Misha was saying, we have such similar tastes that when you pick up one, let's say you're in love with like Jake's guitar, let's say you own that guitar, and then you try picking one of mine and Misha's up off the wall, it's not going to feel like an alien guitar. You're going to find some sense of familiarity, because I think we all have the same scale length, right? We all have a flat fretboard.
Action is also generally pretty low on all of our guitars.
Yeah. And the pickups, we all kind of go for the same, we all like the same kinds of sounds, you know, this really pissed off, a sort of like sharp attack, but controllable.
What I want to say about this one is that this is kind of like, I have a higher end model, the JBM 100, which is also available, but I wanted to kind of make a more workhorse version of that guitar. And this is actually the first JBM model that has a fixed bridge. And so that's kind of one of the biggest changes to the actual design. Aesthetically, it's very much the same. It's now in a matte white finish, and it has my signature DiMarzio Titan pickups, which I also have in a 7-string model. But yeah, it's basically the answer to the higher end model if you need something that's more affordable, but it's going to sound comparable, and it's going to be fun to play, and have a lot of the more premium features that you'd find on like a higher end model. So I'm really happy that I got to develop this with Ibanez, because I needed a guitar like this for the road.
So I actually have found that I don't know if it's just that it's in my head, but like the tuning stability on this is nuts. And I mean, technically they are cooking out all the extra moisture in there, so it is stable, slightly lighter, but very, very, very dense maple neck. It just seems, and that's why I actually haven't gone for a flame one, because like the regular hard rock maple, Cortison hard rock maple is just rock solid. So when you're traveling, it's just a very practical thing to have. Then it's so smooth with the roasting. I mean, it's my favorite. This is my favorite neck I've ever put on a guitar. And yeah, I find that it's insanely stable, like more so than any past guitar. So I'm 100% sold, to where I even had the Pro Series one switch over to these kinds of necks, just because I was like, it's my favorite personally.
Well, the thing I love about Paul, I always say this story when people ask me how is Paul in real life, what kind of person is he? And I always just thought he was the kind of guy to run his company from a yacht somewhere and just kind of let everybody else do it. But the first time I ever became involved with the company, I mean, 6-7 years ago now at this point, he would battle with me on everything. He would argue with me on everything. He'd be like, why do you need stainless steel? You know, we get nickel just as good. Why do you need that scale length? You know, you don't need that, it's only half it. Like, we would just go so hard on these arguments and discussions, and you know, eventually I won. No, I mean,
You did though.
He was sort of gracious enough to do things that they had never really done before, you know, on my behalf, and that's part of the reason he's such an inspiration to me, because he's in a position where he could just let other people do things for him, but he cares, and he has this insane attention to detail that I don't think I've ever seen before in the industry.
So I mean, I wanted to design an amp that would be kind of my perfect amp. I went to PV because the 5150 is one of my favorite amps. It's actually one of the most commonly recorded amps in the metal and rock world, and it just seems to track so well. It's kind of a bit of a disappointing solution for a gear nerd, because I was like out buying like all sorts of crazy amps, like Angles and Diesels and whatever. And I think this like $600 used PV 5150 was always just like the best sounding one when it came to actually recording. There's just something magical about it. Didn't really have a clean channel. It was just sort of two gain channels. I was like, I really want a wonderful clean channel in that amp. And I wanted to tweak the voicing of the main channel a little bit, but not too much. You know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So we tightened it up, we cleaned it up, made it a little bit more modern. Then it was just having features. Like, I'd always wanted an amp that had a built-in noise gate and overdrive, because we'd always put those pedals in front, you know? Like, now I've got like my Horizon Devices Precision Drive, but we were using tube screamers or whatever, and noise gate before, and it was just like, well, if you're always gonna be putting this on in front of the rhythm channel and the lead channel, why not just have it built in? Sure, you could use your own, but then if you didn't have the pedals, at least it's all right there, right? And then because I like pedals, I also had it so that we had two effects loops, two serial effects loops that are in sequence. So effects loop 1 feeds into 2. And the entire amp is MIDI controllable. And I also put pedal power, because at home when I was like designing the amp, I was putting like a couple Strymon pedals, like a delay in loop 1 and reverb in loop 2. And the idea was like, man, it'd be so cool if you could just plug those in, power them off the amp, use the MIDI controller that comes with the amp, which is, you know, it's a MIDI controller, but it's a remote control for the amp. You could just basically turn on delay and reverb in the effects loop, just have your pedals sit on the amp. You know, you don't need to have all these cables going back and forth. So you could have a slightly more Spartan setup if you wanted. If you just want basic delay reverb, you want to have your noise gate and your overdrive in front, you want to have a clean with its own overdrive on it, which is more of a traditional like kind of rock blues overdrive. So it's just supposed to be as fully featured an amp as possible. And the other thing is that because we use the Axe-Fx, and this is actually how we use this live, we're using it as a power amp for the Axe-Fx. I wanted the power amp to be bulletproof. There's a lot of amps, power amps, that impart the character of that amp. And the character of that amp sometimes will have a lot to do with sort of reacting to the preamp. So it'll be shaping it a certain way because the preamp's a certain way. I wanted something that was a lot more sort of neutral. They gave you a nice big tube power amp sound, but that wasn't imparting any crazy character on it. It was just kind of something that would be a nice bed for any sort of modeler to sit in, or any sort of preamp. So we spent a lot of time doing that, making that effects loop very clean. So that's basically the amp there. It was just kind of what my dream amp would be. I think it came out absolutely incredible. The guys seemed to like it well enough to be using it, and the reception's been really good, because again, it was something I would say I designed a little bit selfishly. It was really just for me, unless like, oh, I don't know how people will like it, but it seems like people are genuinely enjoying the amp, so I'm really happy with how it's come out. This is Misha Mansour from Periphery. Be sure to check out my signature products at AmericanMusical.com.
This is Mark Holcomb from Periphery. You can check out my signature products at AmericanMusical.com.
This is Jake Bowen with Periphery, and you can check out my signature products at AmericanMusical.com.